massive panic buying frenzy continues to spread all across the world amid an ever-growing supply chain chaos and the imminent threat of further shipping disruptions in the coming days. A rush to hoard energy supplies has begun as fuel prices skyrocket and reach new historic highs. In the United States, Americans are in panic at the pumps, with gas prices facing the highest weekly jump in over a decade. Meanwhile, in Eastern nations, people are running to buy everything they can still find in stock amid the disastrous collapse of their currency. From furniture to jewelry to other luxury goods with a high resale value, a wide range of products is simply disappearing from the stores. Now, there's a lot to cover in today's video, so please go ahead, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel to keep updated with our latest notifications. Some so-called experts say that American shoppers are still hoarding food and energy supplies, such as gas, propane, and other types of fuel, despite the decline in health crisis-induced disruptions. However, what those experts are failing to consider is that the damage done to our supply chains won't simply fade away as the rate of virus infection cases goes down. In fact, at every link of the chain, conditions are still getting worse. The backlog of containers at California ports has become so extensive that ships started to be diverted to other ports across the West Coast, which then caused congestion in several major U.S. gateways, since many of these facilities remain severely short-staffed and unable to process the enormous amount of goods arriving each day. The American people are finally understanding the importance of stockpiling. They've been buying in bulk whenever they can, and while some may call it hoarding, consumers say they're only prepping for the tough times ahead of us. With memories of widespread shortages still fresh in people's minds, they don't want to be left in such a vulnerable position again. A recent article written by consumer behavior reporter Lisa Bannon described that more and more U.S. consumers are stockpiling large amounts of food and household goods in anticipation of supply chain disruptions and shortages. That became particularly true now that global conflicts have started to worsen and trigger shipping interruptions, as well as the closure of some shipping routes and soaring transportation costs brought on by the stunning rise in oil prices. With energy prices already high, shoppers are rushing to stockpile propane, other fuels, especially gasoline. As opposed to stockpiling food, which takes time and planning, consumers have been panic buying gas before prices go even higher and supplies get even tighter. In many states, including California, Texas, New York, even Hawaii, drivers are getting shocked at the pump when they see just how high gasoline prices have gotten just over the past week. Cars are lining up for miles amid fears that prices will shoot up even higher during the coming week. Drivers are trying to stock up on gasoline before the average price of a gallon stabilizes above $4. But in the states we just mentioned, that record has already been broken. Experts are warning that gas prices are expected to climb higher this week. On Saturday, prices rose to $3.92 per gallon. That's just regular gas, up from $3.84 on Friday, according to AAA. The firm predicts that by Tuesday, the national average will be at $4.10 per gallon, the highest price since July 2008, when the Great Recession was causing acute economic distortions and imbalances between supply and demand. Gas buddy analysts are saying that Americans should expect increasing pain at the pumps as oil prices rise and global production falls, due to the escalating confrontation between Russia and Ukraine. People should start bracing for times of lower supply, they said. Considering that both nations in conflict are amongst the biggest oil and natural gas exporters of the world, and that an energy crunch is already affecting European countries, it's only a matter of time until the same happens here. For that reason, gas buddy analyst Patrick DeHaan warned on his Twitter account that the U.S. could soon see a national average of $5 per gallon of gas. The forecast has triggered alarm among drivers in several states who then started filling up their tanks because stations ran out of supply. Many places are seeing gas of $5 or more already. On Thursday, San Francisco became the first U.S. city with an average gas price of more than $5 a gallon, marking a 30% jump in 1 year. The state of California has set the record of $5.18, the most expensive market in the entire country, AAA reported. The skyrocketing prices are hurting the pockets of the average American worker. In an interview with USA Today, Rashad Harvey Jr., restaurant employee, said it was becoming harder and harder to fill up his vehicle with premium gas. For this little car, it's almost $60 to be filled up, he said. For that price, that's for somebody with a construction job, making a lot of money. Small business owners are suffering too. Joseph Sauer owns S&K Technology Inc. in Richmond and said that prices are outrageously hurting small companies like his. It's going to run us out of business. I've never seen it so bad. By the time we pay taxes, with the increase of taxes and food and everything else, sending guys everywhere, it's costing a fortune, Sauer lamented. He attributes the high gas prices to a reason why his profit margins are down to 30%. If we lose our small business in America, we lose the foundation of what it was built on, he highlighted. Unfortunately, there is no end in sight for this trend. Last week, the price of Brent crude oil, the international benchmark, increased to nearly $120 a barrel. That's the highest level in a decade, before dropping to about $110.46 a barrel, according to Reuters. More shipping bottlenecks for oil and fuels are expected to occur starting on Monday, given that the shipping route across the Black Sea was deemed as a risk area, and shipping companies cannot send new ships nor divert existing ships out of the region for the time being. Together, Russia and Ukraine supply almost 30% of oil and natural gas the rest of the world consumes. And the crisis has not only sparked chaos in America, but also in the UK, where authorities are begging drivers to stop panic buying fuel as gas stations in the UK run dry. Several cities are witnessing a rush to hoard gasoline similar to what happened last year after a worldwide shortage of natural gas sent prices soaring. Since the beginning of last week, local reports have been describing that drivers are forming exceedingly long lines at gas stations across the UK amid fears prices will shoot up again. In fact, experts said that gas prices are on track to hit £2, and that's per litre, or even more as oil keeps rising. One of the consumers said in an interview that this was the worst petrol panic he had ever seen, and that we waited in line from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. only to come home with a half-full tank as his local station ran out of gas. Meanwhile, a panic-buying frenzy is still taking place in China, where food retailers began rationing food and imposing sweeping purchasing limits as shortages aggravate across the nation. Food staples such as rice, fresh produce, meat and pork are still out of stock, and when shoppers are lucky enough to find them, prices are 20 to 30% higher than usual. The supply of grains is also shrinking, and with compromised grain production in both Russia and Ukraine, the entire world, including the US, is silently moving towards a devastating food crisis. This week, many families in Kiev have also started to panic buy food and other staples as fears of an aggressive confrontation with Russian forces continue to rise. Ukrainian families have lined up for hours in queues outside supermarkets and at shop checkouts to stock up on essential groceries, but most grocery stores were extremely understocked, and terrified locals snatched up whatever was left on the shelves in a desperate attempt to ensure enough to eat during such uncertain times. Food and medicine shipments are not being delivered to both countries. A new Reuters report exposed that tons of food and several medications are spoiling on ships waiting outside the Black Sea, as authorities demanded the temporary shutdown of ports in the region. One Ukrainian official warned of a serious bottleneck in the area and pleaded to humanitarian organizations to explore the option of ships being able to arrive in the Black Sea. The official suggested that the Kremlin's strategy was to starve civilians into surrender. At the same time, in Russia, big-name brands are massively closing stores since shipping companies announced they cannot ensure deliveries for the country anymore. Apple, Nike, Shell, and BP have pulled out of Russia following the imposition of Western sanctions. The latest firm to announce mass store shutdowns was IKEA, and the move has sparked, you guessed it, a panic-buying frenzy of flat-pack furniture, homeware, and other home furnishing goods as Russians began stocking up on valuable items they can resell later on. IKEA's shelves were stripped bare as people crammed their carts. One shopper said, "We didn't get what we planned because nothing's left." The Swedish company is closing all its branches in Russia and will stop sourcing materials from Belarus. In a statement, IKEA said, "The conflict has both a huge human impact and is resulting in serious disruptions to supply chain and trading conditions, which is why the company groups have decided to pause IKEA operations in Russia." Right after the announcement, large crowds of people started clearing up the stores. Russia is going through a catastrophic financial meltdown that has pushed its currency to collapse almost 30% over the last 10 days. Bank runs have swept across the country as the population tried to take their cash out of the system and invested in more stable assets and goods that would hold on to their value over time, including silver and gold. Luxury brands such as Bulgari have seen a significant spike in sales as consumers again started panic buying luxury goods, including jewelry and watches that will likely have a high resale value. As the Russian currency, the ruble, continues to decay and lose value, not only investors or rich buyers are turning to luxury goods to protect their wealth, the collapse of the ruble is threatening to wipe out the savings of ordinary Russians. That's why many of them are trying to buy products whose value will remain untouched during the conflict. Similar to gold, the prices of designer jewels and watches can hold and even increase in some cases following economic turmoil caused by global conflicts. In essence, all of those waves of panic buying signal that the world's population is losing confidence and losing trust in global leaders and governments. They're becoming aware that no one is coming to rescue them from the mess that those in power have created and pushed us into. Supply chains have been stretched to the limit, and the value of our money, it doesn't matter if you're in America or on the other side of the globe, will continue to collapse as our resources become more scarce and inflation eats up a larger share of our incomes with each passing month. These are exceedingly dark times, and we should all look after ourselves while we still can.